Listen closely, child, for this is not just a story. It is a warning. Long ago, in a land where the red earth met the wide sky, there ruled a king whose word was law. He was strong, feared, and proud. And like many men of power, he believed strength was the same as wisdom. The king had 2 sons. Jabari, the firstborn, was everything a king desired, tall, loud, fearless. When he walked, people stepped aside. When he spoke, others listened. Then there was Kofi, quiet Kofi, the boy who watched more than he spoke. The boy who asked questions no one cared to answer. From the day he could walk, people whispered, "This one, he is not like the other." Even the king would look at him and sigh. "Why did the gods give me this child?" he once said, thinking no one heard. But the gods always hear. One day, before the whole kingdom, the king made a declaration. "My heir will be the strongest among my sons." The crowd cheered. Jabari smiled. Kofi said nothing. But that night, the wind carried a strange sound. And somewhere far beyond the world of men, something ancient began to stir. In those days, the people loved strength. They praised it. They feared it. They believed it was the only path to greatness. So it was no surprise that Jabari became the pride of the kingdom. Each morning, he trained in the palace courtyard. Spears flew from his hands like lightning. His voice shook the ground when he shouted commands. Again, he would roar. And again he would strike. The soldiers admired him. The elders nodded with approval. Even the king watched with shining eyes. That, the king would say, is a son. But when Kofi entered the same courtyard, the air changed. He moved slowly. Carefully. Not weak, just different. Faster, the trainers would shout. Stronger. Kofi tried. Oh, he tried. But his hands trembled when he held the spear. His body did not obey him the way Jabari's did. One day, he fell in front of everyone. The courtyard grew silent. Then, laughter, soft at first. Then louder. Jabari did not laugh, he simply turned away. But the king shook his head. And that hurt more than the laughter. Kofi learned early that silence can be louder than words. After that fall, fewer people called his name. Fewer eyes followed him. It was as if he had become invisible. But pain does not disappear just because others stop looking. One evening, Kofi sat alone behind the palace walls, where the tall grasses whispered secrets to the wind. He held a small wooden spear in his hands. "I will try again," he whispered. Again, again, again. Each throw missed. Each throw weaker than the last. His arms ached, his chest burned. Still, he did not stop, until a voice broke the silence. "Why do you force yourself to be what you are not?" Kofi turned. It was Jabari. Standing tall, watching. "I must be strong," Kofi said softly. "Father wants it." Jabari stepped closer. "Strength is not something you wish for. You either have it, or you don't." The words were not shouted, but they cut deep. Jabari turned to leave, then paused. "The kingdom does not need dreamers, Kofi. It needs warriors." And just like that, he was gone. Leaving Kofi alone, with a question he could not answer. Now listen carefully, child, because this part was hidden for many years. Kofi was not always a quiet boy. When he was born, the entire kingdom celebrated. Drums filled the night. Fires danced under the moon. But on the 7th night, something changed. The baby stopped crying. Stopped moving. Stopped breathing. The palace fell into silence. Women wept. Men lowered their heads. The king did not speak. "Take him away," he said at last. "The gods have taken what they gave." But before the child could be buried, the sky darkened. Not with clouds, but with something deeper. The wind howled. The ground trembled. And an old woman appeared at the palace gates. "I have come for the child," she said. No one dared to stop her. She carried the lifeless baby into the forest. And there, under a tree older than memory, she began to sing. A song no human should know. By morning, the storm was gone. And the baby cried again. When she returned him, she said only this: "He belongs to them now." Then she vanished. And the king never spoke of it again. Stories like that do not die. They hide, they wait. And sometimes, they whisper. As Kofi grew, the servants would speak in low voices when he passed. "That is the boy," one would say. "The one who died," another would reply. And came back, a third would add, quickly looking away. But no one said these things out loud, not where the king could hear. Because the king hated weakness. And what could be weaker than a child who once failed to live? So the story faded. Or so they believed. But the old woman's words, "He belongs to them now," those words did not fade. They settled deep into the roots of the world. And the world remembered. One night, as Kofi slept, he dreamed. He stood in a place with no ground and no sky. Only light. Soft, endless light. A voice called his name. Kofi. He turned, but saw no one. Kofi. The voice was gentle, but heavy. Like something ancient. "What do you want from me?" he asked. The light flickered. And for a moment, just a moment, he saw shadows moving inside it. Watching him. Waiting. Then he woke. Heart racing. And far away, thunder rolled across a clear sky. Listen well, child, for loneliness can shape a soul more than any weapon. As the years passed, Kofi learned where he was welcome, and where he was not. The great halls of the palace grew colder to him. Laughter stopped when he entered. Conversations changed. Even the servants, who once smiled at him as a child, now bowed quickly and moved away. It was not hatred. It was something worse. It was distance, like he carried something they did not understand. So Kofi found comfort in quiet places. The edge of the forest. The banks of the shrinking river. The old stones behind the palace where no one bothered to go. There, he would sit for hours. Listening. Not just to the wind, but to something deeper, something beneath the world. One evening, as the sun melted into the earth, Kofi whispered, "Why am I different?" The wind did not answer. But the trees seemed to lean closer. And for a moment, just a moment, he felt it again. That strange presence. Watching, not with anger, not with judgment, but with patience. As if waiting for him to understand something he had not yet learned to hear. The day came when the king could wait no longer. The people needed certainty. The kingdom needed a future. So drums were called. Elders gathered, warriors lined the courtyard. And before all eyes, the king rose. "It is time," he said, his voice heavy like thunder. "The kingdom must know its next ruler." Kofi stood at the edge of the crowd. Unseen, unwanted. Jabari stood at the center. Unshaken, unquestioned. "My first son, Jabari," the king continued, "has proven his strength. His courage, his power." The crowd began to murmur, then cheer. "He will be the one to carry my name. He will be your future king." The cheers grew louder, louder, like a storm rising. Jabari lifted his chin. Crowd, certain. Kofi did not move. But inside him, something cracked. Not loudly, not suddenly, but deeply. As if a door had closed forever. That night, while the kingdom celebrated, Kofi sat alone again. No tears. No anger. Just silence. But far beyond the noise of men, the wind changed, and the stars above him flickered. As if they had just witnessed a mistake. At first, no one noticed. A river runs slower, who would question it? A field grows less green, who would fear it? But the earth always speaks, child. And those who ignore it, pay the price. The rains came late that year. Then not at all. The great river that fed the kingdom began to shrink, its waters pulling away like a retreating breath. Farmers stood in their fields, staring at dry soil that once fed their families. "This is not normal," they whispered. The elders gathered. "The balance is disturbed," one said. But the king did not listen. "Seasons change," he replied. "We are strong. We will endure." "And Jabari?" Jabari laughed. "Weak land breaks," he said. "Strong men do not. But strength cannot command the sky." Days turned into weeks, the sun burned hotter, the ground cracked open, animals began to disappear. And at night, strange sounds echoed from the forest. Not cries, not calls. But something older, something restless. And for the first time, even the bravest men began to feel it. The quiet fear that grows. When the world itself begins to turn against you, when fear enters a kingdom, it does not knock. It spreads. Quietly, like smoke. Soon, the people began to gather outside the palace gates. "We are hungry," they cried, "our children are weak, the land is dying." The king stood before them, his face hard. "My son will handle this," he said. And he turned to Jabari. "Show them your strength." Jabari stepped forward without hesitation. "I will restore order," he declared, and so he acted. He sent warriors into the forest to hunt more game. They returned with nothing. He ordered deeper wells to be dug. They found only dry earth. He commanded the people to ration food. They obeyed, but fear grew. Then he grew angry. "Work harder," he shouted. "This is not the time for weakness." But hunger does not listen to commands. And the land does not obey force. Each failure tightened something inside Jabari. Each failure darkened his eyes. Still, he refused to stop, because he believed one thing above all: if he pushed harder, the world would bend. But child, the world does not bend for pride. The nights became heavier. Not darker, heavier. As if something unseen was pressing down on the land. Children began to wake crying. Elders refused to sleep. The forest no longer felt like part of the kingdom. It felt like something watching it. One night, a group of hunters ran back to the village, breathless. "We saw them," one said. "Who?" the others asked. The man shook his head. "Not animals. Not men." Silence fell. "They were shadows," he whispered, "moving between the trees, watching us." No one laughed, because deep inside, they believed him. That same night, Kofi dreamed again. He stood in the same endless light. But this time, it was not calm. The light trembled, the voices were louder. "Kofi, Kofi, Kofi." Not one voice. Many. Calling him, pulling him, "Come." He tried to speak. "What is happening?" The light surged. And this time, he saw them clearly. Ancient. Endless. Their eyes fixed on him, waiting. Then one voice rose above the rest. "The balance is broken." Kofi woke with a gasp. And outside, for the first time in months, thunder roared across the sky. But no rain fell. Now listen, child, because this is where the unseen world begins to speak clearly. After that night, Kofi could not rest. Sleep came, but peace did not. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard them. The voices. Soft at first. Then stronger. Calling him. Not with anger, not with fear. But with purpose. "Kofi. Kofi." He began to walk differently in the day. Slower. Careful. As if listening to something no one else could hear. One afternoon, as he sat by the dry riverbed, he spoke out loud. "Why are you calling me?" The wind rose gently. The dust moved. And for a brief moment, the air felt alive. Not empty. Not silent. Alive. A whisper touched his ear. Because you can hear. Kofi froze. He looked around. No one, nothing. Just the empty river, and the wide sky. But his heart began to race. That night, he did not tell anyone. Not the king. Not Jabari. Not even the servants. Because deep inside, he knew this truth. Some things are not meant for everyone. And some voices choose who they speak to. Days later, something pulled Kofi toward the forest. Not a thought, not a decision. A pull, like a quiet hand guiding him forward. The forest stood tall and still, its shadows deeper than before. Most people feared it now, but Kofi stepped inside, carefully, listening. The deeper he walked, the quieter the world became. No birds, no insects, just stillness. Then, a voice, "You have come." Kofi turned sharply. There, sitting on a fallen tree, was an old woman, her back bent. Her eyes bright like fire hidden in ash. "I did not mean to come," Kofi said softly. She smiled. "No one means to come here. They are called." Kofi stepped closer. Something about her felt familiar. Strange, but familiar. "Who are you?" he asked. The old woman tilted her head. "Have you forgotten so quickly?" Kofi's breath caught. A memory stirred. A voice from long ago. "You," he whispered. She nodded slowly. "Yes, child. The night you left this world. I was the one who brought you back." Kofi's legs trembled, but he did not run. "Some truths, child, hold you in place." "You saved me?" he asked, his voice barely steady. The old woman chuckled softly. "No, child. I did not save you." She leaned forward, her eyes deep and endless. "I returned you." Kofi frowned. "Returned me, to who?" She raised a finger, and pointed upward. But not to the sky. Beyond it. To them. Silence filled the space between them. Kofi swallowed hard. "The voices, in my dreams," he said slowly. "Are they?" "Yes," she interrupted gently. "They have always been there." Kofi's chest tightened. "Then why me?" he asked. "Why not Jabari? Why not someone stronger?" The old woman smiled again. But this time, there was sadness in it. "Because strength of body is loud," she said. "But strength of spirit." She tapped his chest softly. "Is quiet." Kofi looked down. "I don't feel strong," he admitted. "Good," she said. His head snapped up. "What?" She nodded. "Those who feel strong often stop listening." She leaned closer. "And the gods do not speak to those who do not listen." The forest seemed to breathe as the old woman spoke. Kofi sat beside her, his mind full, his heart uncertain. "If the gods are calling me," he said slowly, "what do they want?" The old woman closed her eyes. "For you to remember." Kofi frowned. "Remember what?" She opened her eyes again. "Who you are." Kofi shook his head. "I am just the king's son, the one no one wants." The old woman's voice grew firm. "No." The word echoed. "You are the one who crossed the line between life and death, and returned." The air grew heavier. "That is not something ordinary, child." Kofi felt a chill run through him. "But I don't understand," he said. "What does that mean?" The old woman stood slowly, leaning on her staff. "It means," she said, "you were chosen before you could choose." She began to walk deeper into the forest. Kofi hesitated. "Where are you going?" She did not turn back. "To show you what the others cannot see." Kofi looked behind him. The path home was still there. Safe, known. But ahead was something else. Unknown, calling. After a long breath, He stood up and followed, while Kofi walked deeper into the unseen world. Jabari was losing his grip on the seen one. The drought had turned the kingdom restless. Hungry eyes filled the streets. Whispers turned into anger. And anger into blame. "This is your doing," one man shouted at a soldier. "You promised strength," another cried. Jabari stood before them, his jaw tight, his fists clenched. "I am doing everything I can," he roared. But his voice no longer carried power. Only frustration. Back in the palace, the king paced in silence. "This should not be happening," he muttered. But deep inside, doubt had begun to grow. For the first time, he wondered. Had he chosen correctly? Had strength blinded him? That night, Jabari stood alone in the courtyard. He struck a wooden post again and again. Harder. Faster. Until his hands bled. "I will fix this," he whispered. "I must." But no matter how hard he struck, the sky did not answer. And far away, in the forest, Kofi stepped into a place no warrior had ever reached. A place where strength meant nothing. And truth meant everything. Now the story sharpens like a blade. Because when a man begins to doubt himself, the world begins to reveal the truth. The kingdom was no longer the same. The air felt thinner. The ground felt tired. Even the sun seemed distant, as if it had turned its face away. People no longer sang in the mornings. They watched the sky instead. Waiting. Hoping. Inside the palace, the king sat alone. No drums. No advisors. Just silence. He held his crown in his hands and stared at it. "Where did I go wrong?" he whispered. The question echoed in the empty hall. But no answer came. Not from the walls. Not from the wind. Not even from his own heart. Far away, Jabari stood before a group of starving villagers. "I will lead a hunt beyond the hills," he declared. "There must be food somewhere." But the people did not cheer this time. They only watched, tired, doubtful, and that was new. Because strength without results becomes noise, and noise fades. Meanwhile, in a place untouched by fear, Kofi walked deeper into a truth that would change everything. The deeper they went, the stranger the world became. Trees twisted in ways Kofi had never seen. Their roots rose above the ground like hands reaching for something lost. The air was thick, but not heavy. Alive. Every step felt like walking into a memory that did not belong to him. "Where are we?" Kofi asked. The old woman did not stop walking. "A place forgotten by men," she said. "But not by the gods." They came to a clearing. At its center stood a great stone. Tall, cracked, covered in symbols that seemed to move when Kofi looked too long. "What is this?" he whispered. The old woman finally turned. "This," she said softly, "is where the first voices touched the earth." Kofi stepped closer. As his hand reached toward the stone, a sudden force pushed through him. A flash. Light. Voices, loud, powerful, endless. He saw images. A great river flowing strong. The land full of life. People dancing. And above them, unseen but present. Something watching, something guiding. Kofi pulled his hand back, breathing hard. "What was that?" he gasped. The old woman's eyes shone. "That," she said, "is what the world is supposed to be." Kofi stood still, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. "The world was different?" he asked. The old woman nodded slowly. "Yes, once, the balance was strong." She walked to the stone and placed her hand upon it. The seen and the unseen lived in harmony. Her voice softened. But men forgot how to listen. Kofi swallowed. And now, the wind moved through the clearing. A low, distant sound echoed, like something wounded. Now the balance is broken, she said. Kofi looked at the dry ground beneath his feet. The drought, he whispered. It is not just the land, the old woman replied. It is the spirit of the world itself. Kofi's chest tightened. Then what can be done? The old woman turned to him fully. And for the first time, she stood straight. No longer bent. No longer weak. Her voice changed. Deeper. Older. You already know the answer. Kofi shook his head. No. I don't. She stepped closer. Her eyes now glowing faintly. You were taken. And returned. You were touched, and marked. You are the bridge. The word echoed in the clearing. The bridge, between what is seen, and what is forgotten. Kofi stepped back, fear rising in his chest. I am not a bridge, he said quickly. I am nothing. I couldn't even pass the simplest trials. His voice cracked. I am not strong like Jabari. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Then the old woman spoke, firm, unshaken. And yet, Jabari cannot hear what you hear. Silence. And yet, Jabari cannot see what you see. Kofi lowered his eyes. But he was chosen, he whispered. The king chose him. The old woman shook her head. Kings choose with their eyes. She stepped closer. The gods choose with truth. The word settled deep. Kofi's breathing slowed. The night you died, she continued, your spirit crossed into their world. And they saw you. Kofi looked up slowly. Why me? He asked again. This time, the old woman answered differently. Because you listened, even in silence. A deep rumble rolled through the ground. The stone began to glow faintly. The time has come, she said. Kofi's heart raced. For what? The old woman's voice dropped to a whisper. For you, to choose. The sky above the forest darkened, though the sun had not yet set. Kofi stood before the glowing stone, his hands trembling. What happens if I fail? He asked. The old woman did not soften her gaze. Then the land continues to die. The words were simple. But heavy. And if I succeed? He asked. She paused. Then spoke slowly. Then you will no longer belong to the life you know. Kofi's breath caught. No longer belong. She nodded. You will carry the voice of the unseen. You will walk between worlds. You will not be like other men. Kofi looked down at his hands. The same hands that could not hold a spear steady. The same hands the kingdom laughed at. And yet now, they were being asked to hold something far greater. I am afraid, he admitted. The old woman stepped forward and placed her hand on his shoulder. Good, she said gently. Fear means you understand the weight. The stone pulsed brighter. The voices returned. Calling. Waiting. Kofi closed his eyes. Took a deep breath. And stepped forward. The moment his hand touched the stone, the world exploded into light. And far beyond the forest, the sky finally answered. Child, this is the moment when the world holds its breath. The instant Kofi touched the stone, the sky split open. Not with rain, but with power. A deep thunder rolled across the land, louder than any storm before. The ground shook. Trees bent low as if bowing to something unseen. In the kingdom, people ran into the open. What is happening? They cried. Jabari looked up, his face hard, but his eyes, uncertain. This is just a storm, he said. But even he did not believe it. Back in the forest, Kofi stood frozen in light. The voices surrounded him now. Not whispers. Not echoes. Clear. Strong. Ancient. You have returned, they said. Kofi tried to speak, but no sound came. Images rushed through him, life, death, balance, breaking. The land, crying. The people, suffering. The sky, waiting. What must I do? He finally managed. The voices answered as one. Restore what was forgotten. The light surged again. And then, darkness, deep, endless. Kofi fell to his knees. And above the kingdom, the first drop of rain began to form. At first, it was only one drop. It fell slowly from the sky and struck the dry earth with a soft sound. Then another, then another. The people stood still. Watching, waiting. Not daring to hope. Then suddenly, the sky opened. Rain poured down like a blessing long delayed. The ground drank deeply. The dust vanished. The air filled with the scent of life returning. Cries rose from the people. It's rain, children laughed. Elders wept, farmers fell to their knees. Even the river began to move again. Jabari stood in the storm, his arms at his sides. He said nothing. Because for the first time, he had done nothing. In the palace, the king stepped into the rain, his face lifted to the sky. This cannot be, he whispered. But it was. And deep in the forest, Kofi lay still. The storm raging above him, the light fading around him. Slowly, his eyes opened. He breathed in, and something had changed. Not outside. Inside. The voices were quiet now, but their presence remained. And for the first time in his life, Kofi understood. News travels fast, child, but truth travels faster. By morning, whispers filled the kingdom. The rain began in the forest. Someone saw a light. Something happened there. Curiosity turned into urgency. Men gathered. We must see. Jabari led them himself. We will find the cause, he declared. But his voice lacked its old certainty. They moved into the forest, step by step, until they reached the clearing. And there, they stopped. Kofi stood beside the great stone. Alive, calm, changed, the air around him felt different. Not heavy, not light, but balanced. Jabari stepped forward slowly. What did you do? He asked. Kofi looked at him, not with fear, not with pride, but with quiet understanding. I listened, he said. The words were simple, but they struck deeper than any weapon. The men looked at each other, confused. Uneasy, then one elder fell to his knees. The signs are clear, he said, the gods have spoken. More followed, one by one. Until only Jabari remained standing. And for the first time in his life, he did not know where he stood. The king came himself. He walked into the forest without guards, without drums, without pride. Only as a man, searching for truth. When he saw Kofi, he stopped. For a long moment, he said nothing. Because what stood before him was no longer the boy he had dismissed. Kofi, he whispered. His voice broke. I did not see you. Kofi stepped forward slowly. No, he said gently. You did not. The king fell to his knees. A king, bowing before the son he once ignored. I was wrong, he said. I chose with my eyes, and not my spirit. Silence settled over the clearing. Jabari lowered his head. The people watched. Waiting. Kofi looked at his father, then at his brother. Then at the land around him. He could feel it now. The balance, fragile, but returning. You were not wrong to want strength, Kofi said softly. But you forgot, there are different kinds. The king closed his eyes, tears mixing with rain. Will you forgive me? He asked. Kofi paused, then nodded. Because true strength, child, does not hold on to anger. And so, child, the story comes to its end. But its lesson must never end. Kofi returned to the kingdom, not as the forgotten son, But as the one who had listened when no one else would, the people no longer whispered. They spoke his name with respect. Not because he was loud, not because he was feared, but because he was understood. Jabari changed, slowly, quietly. He trained still, but now, he listened. And that made all the difference. The king grew older, but wiser. He no longer spoke of strength alone. He spoke of balance, of patience, of truth. And when the time came, he placed the crown upon Kofi's head. Not with pride, but with humility. Because now, he understood. Kofi ruled not with force, but with wisdom. Not with noise, but with listening. And the land flourished once more. So remember this, child. The world will often choose the loudest voice. But the gods listen for the quiet one. The one who hears. The one who understands. The one no one expects, because sometimes the one you overlook is the one chosen to save you.